Join us for the final episode of season 2. After a whirlwind year, it's hard to believe we're celebrating 1,000 downloads, several speaking engagements, and 26 episodes. This all came from Cassie and I saying yes when an opportunity was presented to us. So join us today as we chat about the power of saying yes and the power in saying no. Thanks for saying yes to us. Welcome to Beyond Camp, where we explore the intersection of camp in our lives. For too long, camp professionals have referred to camp as being in a bubble, and we're here to burst that bubble. We know that camp intersects with every aspect of our lives. We're excited to delve into those. We are your hosts, Rachel Kent. My pronouns are she, her,
And I'm Cassie Bloy. My pronouns are also she, her.
and we are here to go beyond camp with you. As a reminder, please subscribe to this podcast wherever you're listening today, and be sure to check out the show notes at gocamp.pro/beyondcamp. Now, let's get started. Welcome to our final episode of this season. It's hard to believe we're already wrapping up season 2. It seems like just yesterday we started, to be quite honest. Um, Cassie and I had met each other once at a dinner table at the Women in Camp Summit, and suddenly we were spending several hours a week together chatting. I remember our first, probably pretty awkward Zoom call together back in the summer of 2020, probably June,
Yeah,
actually.
I'm curious to actually go back and look at a calendar. I feel like we're like at a 1 year mark here
Yeah, just about
ish.
1 year, 2 seasons. We really dove into that first season
Yeah.
with one episode a week. That was quite a challenge for us, but we got there. And it was great. And we slowed things down a little bit this year. And we're excited to be wrapping up this season, taking a break, doing some resting and recharging before we dive back in for season 3. So don't worry, we'll be back. But what are we talking about today? Today, we are talking about the power of yes, what that means for us personally, some research that Cassie has found on it, why we think it's important for camp pros, and how we hope it plays out in our lives moving forward. And you might think, why end the year here? Why not end with like a look back on the last year, a typical kind of reflection episode? Well, to be perfectly honest, as Cassie and I have chatted about over the past few weeks, saying yes is what got us here today. It's that it was that
Hmm.
bold sort of uninhibited, yeah, sure, we'll give this a whirl, that got us to this podcast. We actually, at the time of recording this, hit our 1,000 download mark, which is a huge honor. So, to each of you listening today, we're so grateful that you're here with us and you've joined us on this journey. We appreciate your grace and understanding as we've all learned together. But saying yes got us this. And so we thought we'd dive into that a little bit and do a little bit of reflecting through that before we launch into season 3. So, Cassie, as we so often start many of our episodes, can you tell us some of the theory behind the power of saying yes?
We go for a snippet of the theory because, sometimes we say yes too much personally, and that can limit our ability to say yes. But yes is really powerful and it has a lot behind it. But I want to recognize first that it's a choice. You have the choice to say yes. But when you make that choice, it means that either you believe in yourself or someone believes that you can achieve something. I think we also have to acknowledge that it's a privilege to be able to say yes, that we
Mm,
have that space and autonomy and security to do that as well.
absolutely. And just the free time. I don't think we often
Hmm.
recognize enough that having free time to say yes to something is an incredible privilege. To be like,
Yeah.
oh, yeah, I'd like to take on this new thing versus, sorry, I can't because I am doing whatever it takes just to survive.
Hmm. Exactly. One of the other things that saying yes does is it opens doors to opportunities, right? Like that's what this was. It was a door in
Hmm.
all respects, and it pushes us into that growth zone um, versus our comfort zone and our fear zone. Lets us grow, but it's it can be hard to say yes as well. It takes work and commitment and accountability on yourself to follow through on that yes.
Absolutely, because I think there's lots of us that are really good at saying yes to things and there's no follow up. I, for one, am guilty of that. I'm like, oh yeah, of course I'll help you with that project. And then like 3 days later, I'm like, Rachel, what were you thinking? I don't have capacity for this, interest in this, skills in this. I just like wanted to say yes because I sometimes am a bit of a teacher's pet, probably, to be quite honest.
Yeah, it's super easy sometimes to say yes because you want to feel valuable to somebody
Hmm.
else, right? Like that your work is of value. But I think there's also the inverse of that when your employees or your direct reports ask you something that you can say yes to them
Absolutely. And
as
I think
well.
as a young camp pro, I often feel like I need to say yes in meetings. And they're like, does anyone volunteer for this? I'm like, yes, of course I do, because I like want to be involved and want to prove myself. But sometimes I think just sort of abstaining from that conversation or holding back and letting somebody else step forward could be just as powerful. I wanted to touch on something you said there, that saying yes typically means that somebody has offered you a choice. Sometimes it's like the world has just presented you options, but very often
Yeah.
it's somebody saying, "Hey, do you want this?" Like an actual person in a very tangible manner.
Hmm.
And that's how we got here. Is Travis said, "Hey, I think you should podcast. Do you want to do it?" There was that very real conversation that we had.
Yeah. Of like, huh. Like I remember receiving the message and going, huh, interesting. I I don't know.
I have always wanted to have a podcast.
Yeah.
I think I shared this early on in the first season, but I love to talk, and my parents like got me a book when I was a kid that was like careers for people who want to talk, and one of them was radio broadcasting. Um, and as part of that, I don't know, I feel like podcasting is like the more modern version of radio broadcasting. So,
Yeah, I would
uh,
agree. For me, it was more of like, definitely, this is way outside my comfort zone. Like, public speaking typically has me quaking or having internal dysfunction, to say it
oh,
nicely.
interesting. I actually didn't know that about you. Learn something new every day. That's
Yeah, but
fascinating.
virtual formats, whole different ballgame.
Yeah, I feel like I've gotten used to it
Yeah.
virtually. It'll be interesting when we start presenting together in person one day. I'm holding out hope for that. Um, so to loop back there, because we went off on a bit of a tangent about the power of saying yes because somebody's offered it to
Yeah.
you. I think as campers, we so often have the ability to hold that power of yes, not like over somebody in a negative way, but to give that power to somebody else,
Hmm.
um, to give options. And I think it's such a good reminder as camp pros that we have a chance to reach out and say, "Hey, are you interested in this? I saw this opportunity. I have this idea. Is this something you're interested in?" To our staff, to our volunteers, to the people around us. I think sometimes we miss those opportunities to connect people. And I know a lot of the camp pros that I really admire and look up to, I do so because they are such good connectors of people. And that's such a gift to the camping world as well.
Yeah, I totally, yes, agree. If you're watching this, you'll see my hands doing the big yes movements.
So you mentioned, Cassie, that you're really good at saying yes to things. And I think both of us are big believers in saying yes, and that
Yeah.
it's good for our careers, it's good for our personal lives. But do you think that saying yes means that we can never take time for ourselves?
I think sometimes it hampers my ability to take that time, but I don't think it means we don't at all, right? Like,
Hmm.
sometimes I say yes so much that my calendar is so full that I get home at the end of the day, I shove some food into me and I go to bed, right?
Hmm.
Or I get off, I close the computer, because technically that's what we do now. We just do everything virtually. But I think if we're more intentional with our yeses and how we're setting our boundaries, we still have time for ourselves.
Absolutely, because when we think about like we talk about the power of yes, and I think the power of yes is that it can lead to a bunch of opportunities, right? Like, so you and I got connected because the Slack community started, and there was a call out for people who wanted to help, and I was like, sure, I'll help. Yeah, like I'm here. I said yes. And that opened up all of these connections and friendships that
Yeah.
we've made,
Hmm.
and ultimately to, I think, the podcast and to a variety of other things. And this year we've spoken at conferences together, and
Yeah.
I'm really grateful for that. And that came from saying yes originally. Um,
Hmm.
but when I think about the word power, I think if we say yes to everything that comes our way, it loses some of that power. And I think sometimes that's where we get caught up is we're like, okay, saying yes is important, at least opportunities. So like everything that comes along, I'm going to say yes to, I'm going to say yes to. Um, and then people are like, oh, of course they're going to say yes. Or you're saying yes to a whole bunch of things, you're diluting yourself. So you can never really give your full self to that. And I think the
Hmm.
power comes from being selective in saying yes.
Yeah. I like that analogy of like, it's the power piece, not necessarily the yes piece, and like really focusing on that, because we have that choice to say yes and that choice to decide what int- intentionally choose what is meaningful for us to do, or to say no, but maybe this person, and give that choice to somebody else. I think that's also quite powerful.
Yeah, it's that gift of connection, right? You can say
Yeah.
to somebody, be like, this isn't actually perfect for me, but I know somebody who could be interested. And building those
Mhm.
connections is so, so valuable. We've talked a lot about self care, about taking care of each other,
Yeah.
and about setting boundaries. What does saying yes to yourself look like for you, Cassie?
This is going to sound really odd, but it's by saying no to other things, which is like the complete opposite of saying yes, but by saying no to certain things and making sure that I have set those boundaries or blocked off that time in my calendar, that I have what I need to be able to say yes when I need to say yes.
Hmm, I like that. I think for me, saying yes to myself is valuing myself enough to be like, yes, Rachel, this is what you need right now. Or, yes,
Mm,
you deserve this time, or you need this personal development or professional development. Maybe personal as well. I probably have a lot of personal developing to do as well. I meant professional development, but that ability to value myself, I think saying yes to myself is a powerful move as well. And I think, especially for folks. Who are female, typically we often feel less inclined to say yes to ourselves. We really want to put other people first. And I think it's a powerful thing to say, to sort of stand in your power and say, yes, these are the boundaries I'm setting for myself. Um, this is what I need and understand that my body needs and my mind needs right now, and sort of resting in the power.
yeah, I think there's also that I lost my train of thought as I was saying that. So that's okay. Let's just keep going.
Saying yes to ourselves is a powerful thing, and I think that we need to understand that it's just as powerful as saying yes to other opportunities. And I think that's where it gets lost sometimes. Is I often fall into this trap of like, I need to be doing all the things so I can prove myself, so I
Hmm.
can be of value to the industry and the community. Saying yes, if yes, and then being like, wait a second, hold on. It's also really powerful to be able to say yes to myself. So we're going to continue on this train about striking balance, saying yes to ourselves, and then the flip side of that, the opposite of that, of saying no. But we're going to take a quick break here, and we will be right back.
ACA Illinois takes the time to keep a pulse on what is happening within the camp community. They care about us as camp pros and seek to serve and provide programming that meets our needs. Staying connected and in touch with the field helps drive our creativity and work when it comes to designing professional development programs. Rachel and I have both benefited greatly from the ACA Illinois' educational programs and recommend them highly to everyone else. From webinars to summits, both in person and virtual, ACA Illinois provides high quality, relevant programming for camp professionals. As we head into the summer and the pandemic continues on, don't let Zoom fatigue keep you from staying connected. The ACA Illinois calendar is full of great events to keep you busy and connected all year long. Don't let your professional development fade. How fantastic is it that you can attend professional development without the cost of a flight or attend summits from the comfort of your couch in your favorite camp sweatpants? Make the best of the pandemic and get connected. Bookmark the acail.org/calendar and stay in the loop on all of their great events.
All right, we're going to dive back in here to saying yes, saying no, setting boundaries, and a little bit of reflecting on the last year and looking forward. So Cassie, you mentioned that some of the ways that you say yes to yourself are setting boundaries in your calendar and setting time for yourself so that you're not just doing all the things, coming home, eating and sleeping.
Mhm.
Like today you said yes to all the things, came home, ate, podcasted, and then you might be going to sleep right after this. Um, so how do you often say that you identify as a young camp pro. So how do you strike the balance between saying yes, taking care of yourself, and then also having a life? Let's say in like a post-pandemic world, because we're here in Canada, we're still a little bit away from running around without masks on.
Yeah, it's hard. Like it's not easy. Like let's just it's not easy to find that balance and recognize that balance, I think is even more important. And I think as a camping professionals are also people who care and
Mm-hmm.
maybe care a little bit too much sometimes. So it's even easier to be like, yeah, don't worry about it. I'll take care of it. Right. Like, not a problem. I got that. sometimes yes doesn't sound like yes, right? But you really have to, I think one of the things that I've found is yes and, or yes but, right?
Hmm.
And asking like that follow-up question, like, yeah, I think I could do that, but I have a question. What's the time frame for this project? Or what kind of commitment does this look like? So
Mm-hmm.
that you have an idea of what you're actually taking on, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if you know it's a camp job, what is the actual commitment?
Mm-hmm.
What do they expect of you? What are those expectations, so that you can go, yes, this is something that matches what I want in my work life balance, or no, not quite, maybe I need to negotiate or look elsewhere.
Mm-hmm. I really like what you said about finding things that are like yes and or yes but. And I think for me, it's also finding the things that I can say just like a blank slate yes to. I think I need that. I'm the
Mm,
kind of person who likes to dive in head first,
yeah.
2 feet in. I like to just jump boldly into things and give my time to it. That being said, I'm starting to recognize that you can't do that to everything. So I need to know
Hmm.
what in my life am I saying yes, absolutely, I'm all in, and what things am I saying yes, but here's my time restrictions. Yes, and I can only do this once every 2 weeks. And I think having those categories is important. Um, and for me, it's also having somebody to hold me accountable to that. So
Oh,
I have some mentors and a wonderful partner who reminds me of the things I am obligated to, that I've said yes to, that require my time. And then also just having a puppy reminds me that like the puppy's really bold with her time commitments there. So but I think like understanding that, having people to hold you accountable to say, hey, I think you're saying yes just boldly to too many things.
hmm,
Or people who are like, hey, Rachel, I know you said yes to this, and here's the time restrictions I'm going to give you. Um,
yeah,
because I need that sometimes. I need people to call me out and be like, hey, you're saying yes to too many things, and you're not actually doing like the best job at all of these. So let's think about where we can focus your time. Um, I am scatterbrained, to say the least. I like to think of my mind. Some people have a mind that I envision to be like a neat filing cabinet where you can just like rifle through the little files and like pull something out. And they can talk about whatever it is. Mine is like, uh, my mind is like a filing cabinet after a tornado. There's just like papers everywhere flying about all the time, and like I don't know, like creatures living in it, and just like it's just chaos all the time. That's kind of my brain, and so I need people to focus me, be like, whoa, whoa, hold up, like here's where we're going.
that's interesting, because I view mine sometimes as like you open the drawer and it's too full, but then you close it and you open it again and it's empty and
Oh,
everything's just like
tell
missing.
me more about that. Where do the
I
things
don't know.
go?
I don't know. They just disappear. I think that's when I get too much, and it's just like, okay, you're done. Time to turn
Mm.
off. And it just like my brain just turns off for a hot minute. It's like when I can't finish a sentence sometimes.
All right, that's fair. And the pandemic doesn't help with that either. That's for
No.
sure. Yeah. So I think my advice to people is, if you're similar to me or you feel like you have a hard time, is to find a mentor or find somebody, an accountability
Hmm.
partner, friend, partner, whoever, somebody who can just say to you, okay, what are we saying all in yeses to? What are we setting boundaries for? What are we saying no to? And we're going to talk about saying no in a minute. But I think it's important that we give ourselves permission to do an all in yes to some things. And I think a lot of the times camp folks need that. That's what I love about camp, is that when
Yeah.
I'm there, I am all in. Um, and I
Yeah.
need that outlet in my life.
I would say, and if you can't find that person right away, or like have them available to you, because sometimes it takes time to find that right accountability person, write your goals down and decide what kind of yes, what you can say yes to help you meet those goals, so that
Hmm.
you are moving them, like, because those would, to me, if you're meeting a goal, that would be a blanket yes to say yes to,
Hmm.
something that you could say yes to that came your way. Whereas if it were something else that's kind of like to the side of that and maybe doesn't move you in the right direction or doesn't align with your personal values, that's something that you might want to reflect more on.
Hmm. And I also want to say, I want to touch on the piece when I said I use the phrase accountability partner. I think sometimes that can have negative feelings for some folks. It's not always used in the most positive way. And to me, it's just somebody in my life who I can have open conversations with, who we can chat about it as my goals change, and who sort of sees the vision that I have for my life and is able to sort of help me along that path. But as always, we encourage you to find the relationships that work best for you. It's not meant to be a punitive thing by any means. Um, so let's dive into how saying no can be the same thing as saying yes. Cassie, can you get us started on that?
Yeah, it's no, but, or no, tell me more, or not right now. I think there's like so many things we can say, but I strongly believe by saying no, sometimes you gain a little bit more power because, especially if you're a yeser, right? If you are always saying yes, by saying no, people are like, oh, that they're not available to do that, right? Or they can't do that, and then you can have that conversation to maybe figure out how you can help or guide the process and commit a little bit of time to helping something or someone, but by not committing what you need to do to keep that time for yourself.
Hmm. So when you say people can say no, but are you saying like they might say like no, but maybe come back to me in 3 weeks, or no, but I can connect you with this person? Tell me a
Yeah.
little bit more about that.
No, I think it's exactly that. It's like, no, but I know that this project is wrapping up and I'll have more time in X amount of months, weeks, or no, but I can carve out half an hour to run through the basics for you so that you have some more information of what
Hmm.
my thoughts, right? So you can say a little yes without committing to the full yes.
Yeah, and I think that that's a good stepping stone for folks. I also think that
Mm-hmm.
it's reasonable for people to just say no, and I have a lot of
Oh,
respect
yeah.
for people who do this because I something that I'm not good at. I will say that full stop. I'm not good at just saying no. Um, But when people say no, and when I watch people say no in meetings or in different committees, they're like, nope, like I know I don't have time for this right now. I don't have capacity or my skill set doesn't match. I have a lot of respect for that because they know themselves and they know their boundaries and they want the best for
Mm-hmm.
that project and they know that they can't give the best of themselves. Um, and so when they say no, I can't be a part of this at this time. It's not they're saying no, I can't support it. In my mind, they're actually saying I really support this project. I want the best for it, for you, for the people involved, and it's not going to be in its best form if I'm part of it because I can't give fully of myself right now.
Yeah.
And I think that's a remarkable thing. And so I think we need to reframe that in some ways. So I think there's a lot of power in that because when we say no to something, it means that we can say yes to something else down the line.
Mm-hmm.
And I know there's a lot of people use the phrase, oh, when you say yes to something, you're saying no to something else, which I think sort of gives saying yes a bit of a negative connotation sometimes
Yeah.
because we're focusing on how busy we are. But when we can say saying no means that you actually get to say yes to something else, I think that's a bit of a mindset shift.
I would agree. I think it just gives, like, I struggle saying a straight out no too. It's always like a no, but I can do this part, or I can give that, right? But when you just say no, people realize that you have that ability as well to do that and to recognize that, because I don't think there's a lot of people out there who can recognize their ability to say no or iterate their ability, like the word no in a conversation in public with other
Hmm.
people.
Yeah, people are scared of it, I think, as well.
Yeah.
Like they'll lose their value. But I also think that there's huge power in just saying no to something that you're not interested in. How often do we sign up for something, then you're like halfway through a project and you're like, there's no part of me that wanted to do this. And I mean, if it's your
Mm-hmm.
job and somebody is paying you to do this and they've asked you to do this, I will be the first to say there are things you have to do in life that you will not love and you just have to do them because it's part of your job. There's parts of all of our jobs that you're like,
Yeah.
this is my jam, but here I am, budgeting, sending emails, whatever it might be, right? Like we have to do that.
Yeah.
Um, so I'm not saying you should say no to that. You absolutely should not. And I think it's important we do things we don't love. That's perhaps a different podcast for me to ramble on about. But in this case, I think when we think of our volunteer time, camp pros tend to give a lot of themselves freely to others. Um, it's okay to say no to a project that just doesn't interest you. Like if we'd been offered something and I was like, I've never wanted to podcast ever before, not interested, saying no would be an incredibly powerful thing.
Yeah. Yes. I agree. I'm doing the hand thing again.
For the like 3 people who watch this on YouTube.
Exactly. Just for them.
Um, Cassie, I noticed that you put in our notes that no is a guaranteed failure.
Yeah,
Tell me
I
about
was
that.
reading that somewhere, and it's perceived as like if you say no, there's a sense of internal failure in yourself,
Mm-hmm.
right? By saying no. But I look at that at the same time as being like, but you didn't even try, right?
Mm-hmm.
So how can you fail at something that you didn't try?
Yes, that's interesting. I think um, have respect for people who can say no because they're like, I don't have the skill set for this. I don't have the capacity. I can't give of my best self right now. I think it becomes easy to say no to avoid things sometimes. Like we can fall into that trap of not wanting to be in our growth zone, and so we just say no to things because we just like are scared. So I think we have to look at the reasoning behind the no to understand the power of it. Which brings me to
Mhm.
my next point, Cassie. How do you know when you should say yes for saying no? Do you know? Does it come easily to you?
The yes part, yes.
Okay, so when you're
I'm good
presented
at
with
saying
something,
yes. Yeah.
what makes you say yes?
What makes me say yes? It typically aligns with my beliefs and my values. Sometimes there's a little bit of peer pressure involved, like from a mentor being like, just kind of giving me that extra push I need to say yes because they know I have the ability to do it. They know I have the time to do it as well. Right. And they're just being like, stop self-doubting. You're good at that. Do that.
Mhm.
But I lost, see, this is the drawer just emptied again.
Okay, so you touched on how you know when you say yes because you it's just sort of like your default.
Yeah.
That's what you go to, or somebody pushes you into it. I think for me, I it's easy for me to say yes because I am a bit of a people pleaser sometimes, or I just like want to be part of things because I think it's great to be a part of things. Um, but when I the moments where I think about saying yes versus it just sort of like happening subconsciously are the moments when I'm really nervous about something. When somebody asks me to do something and my instinct is to walk away from it, that's when I know I need to say yes. Um, because I know that that's going to be the biggest personal or professional growth for me. And that has been a really key learning for me over the last year and a bit that we've been in this pandemic. That the moments that have presented me with an opportunity to walk away, not lose anything, just go about my business, people would
Mhm.
probably not even know that I said no. Or I could say yes and be nervous, anxious, stressed about it, but the reward was there, are the moments that I know that I absolutely need to say yes, and I will say no to other things so that I can have that uncomfortable yes.
Thank you for putting my stomach feelings into context for the first time. I get that same feeling because, but I've never been able, it's just like this really discomfort. And like, I get more of like a physical, like illness feeling when I
Hmm.
want to say yes, but don't think I have the ability to because I get exactly nervous and
Yeah,
it just manifests in my body differently.
and when we think about comfort zone theory, which lots of camp pros are familiar with, but for those who aren't, it's the idea that you have your comfort zone. If you think of like a bullseye, then your growth zone just outside of that, where you're a little bit anxious or nervous, and then you have your fear zone or your panic zone beyond that, where we're aiming for. But I've really tried to recognize that within myself and understanding that
Mhm.
when I'm in that growth zone, that's when I should say yes, because
Yeah.
there's so much potential there, and that feeling of being uncomfortable is important to sit with. And I had the pleasure of being able to give some advice to my as alumni of my program in university, and that was the piece of advice I gave was that when you're the most nervous about something is when you should say yes, whether it be to a canoe trip, a job, a speaking engagement. That's when you
Mhm.
should go for it. Um, so as we wrap up, we've touched on this a little bit, but Cassie, how has saying yes shaped your time during the pandemic?
Whew. How has it shaped my life? It's landed me this podcast with Rachel. That was a yes. It's gotten me into two new job potentials, one aligning with camping and one outside of camping, which has actually given me so much more insight into how to run a business,
Ooh,
which,
important.
yeah, I didn't realize how much of that job was going to be business focused when I took
Hmm.
it. But I would say it's 90% business and 10% operational. So like it really, like yes has given me more skills. It has allowed me to grow as a professional through
Nice.
the pandemic, which I'm grateful for.
Yeah, that's great. So I think sometimes we can miss that business side of things depending on how
Yeah.
our organizations are structured and the roles that we have in them.
Hmm.
I think for me, saying yes created a lot of really great connections with people that I didn't have before. Because sometimes it was as simple as saying yes to a bunch of folks, be like, hey, there's going to be a Zoom call later tonight. You're welcome to come. And me being like, oh, I don't really know these people, but okay, I'll hop on. And like building connections and networking that way. Um, Saying yes has also helped me find some purpose through this. Um, by saying yes to volunteering in different ways, it's allowed me to find some small way to help. And it was really small, and I'm in no way comparing myself to a frontline worker, healthcare worker, or anything like that. But it's allowed me to contribute to my communities, which I think has been really valuable. And then I also last summer I was part of the Seth Godin's Alt MBA, which I said
Hmm.
yes to, and somebody reached out to me about. And then partway through that, somebody was like, "Oh, well, I'm thinking of starting this discussion group afterwards. You want to be part of it?" And I was like, "Sure, yes. Like, why not?" And over a year later, we're still participating, still chatting, and I have these connections that I never would have had before if I hadn't said yes. And so I'm grateful for that. So as we wrap up our final episode of this year, or of this season, I should say, because we're gonna be back for season 3 in the fall of 2021. How do you want yes to shape your future, Cassie?
Oh, I was just checking our notes and reading that and sitting here going, whew, let's just end on a big note here.
Yeah.
I want to be able to continue to have the choice to say yes,
Mm-hmm.
right? I want to be in a place physically, emotionally, financially, all of that, where I can make those choices and that choice to say yes as I need to make it.
Nice. That's well said. I think that I want to lean into the power of granting other people the chance to say yes. Um,
Mm.
I want to really work on connecting other people, and giving and showing them opportunities. So I don't have to say yes to things, but I can share that opportunity with other people. Um, and
Nice.
I want to find those yeses that make me nervous and start those again. I think that comes in sort of like ebb and flow. If
Hmm.
you're talking about the roller coaster, like it comes and goes. But I want to find some of those really nerve-wracking yeses again, um, and dive into those because I think when we're comfortable for too long, we can become complacent. So it's good to be nervous once in a while. Um, Again, I
Totally.
recognize the privilege in saying that, and we're grateful for these opportunities. And I think for us at Beyond Camp as well, um, as a as a podcast and as a team, I'm looking forward to new opportunities to say yes to as we look at how we're going to grow our podcast and our chances to speak, and hopefully one day speak in person together, which will be a whole new world because we've never spoken in person together.
That'll be so strange. Like, I'll say yes, I'm down, but like, it's going to be weird to not have a screen. Like, we might just need to put like a piece of plexiglass up or something.
For the two of us, yeah. Well, here's to saying yes, to new opportunities and new growth, and to a whole new season.
Coming soon. We need to plan. Oh my goodness.
Well, we hope that to all of our listeners that you'll say yes to listening to us again in season 3 of September of 2021.
Thank you for joining us beyond camp. We hope you were able to connect and reflect with us as we journey beyond the property lines and bring camp with us. As we wrap up, we want you to be able to reach out and connect with us. So you can reach myself, Cassie, at cassie.bloy at stefanricard.ca. Rachel, how can our listeners connect with you?
Folks are always welcome to send me an email at kentar@girlguides.ca.
Please be sure to check out our show notes. We're going to drop a few links to some articles that we reviewed prior to recording today. You can find those at gocamp.pro/beyondcamp. One last big thank you for season 2 going out to the team at Camp Pro for holding a space for these conversations, to the team at ACA Illinois for sponsoring season 2 and providing great resources for the camping community as a whole, to our producers, Matt and Jotham, for their dedication and skills behind the scenes, and to you, our listeners, for your 1,000 downloads. We're stoked. Thank you for allowing us to keep recording. Beyond Camp is part of the Go Camp Pro podcast network. Check out all our other podcasts at gocamp.pro/podcasts. Go well and safely, friends. We'll see you in the fall.